Okay, we start with the tires. So we've got 19-inch spoked wheels on the front and 17 inches on the back. Both are Michelin Anarchy adventure type tires, but you could swap them out for more of a road tire if you're purely going to use the bike on the road. I've been using these for about 3,200 miles in America, and they're slowly beginning to wear out. So you can see here is the marker where you should replace them, and if you can see where my fingernail depth is going in, you know, I've probably got another 2,000 miles before I need to change them out. I've never had to refill the air in the tires. They do look beautiful though, with the Moto Guzzi logo on the rim. Back tire is a bit thicker, and again it's probably wearing out at the same kind of time frame, probably a bit less on these rear tires. Might get another 1,000 kilometers on them, so that might get me to Sturgis before I need to get them replaced. But even if I go past that indicator, there's still a good amount of tread before you probably hit the tire proper. So we'll just see how that goes. At the back of the bike, I've taken the boxes off so you can kind of see all around the bike. So we've got the exhaust here mounted on the left side, and you've got these amazing rear lights, which are kind of like afterburners on a jet plane. So they're really bright when the bike's all powered up. My plate hasn't arrived from Oregon yet, so I'm still on a temporary plate. So working up the bike a bit further, you've got fork suspension at the front. The rear is a single spring with a piggyback cylinder on the right hand side. It is adjustable, so you get the wrench from underneath the seat. When I got it, it was set at the lowest, softest setting, and over the first 1,000 miles I've cranked it up one notch. I may, before I head off to Sturgis, crank it up another notch just to stiffen the suspension as the module gets kind of broken in the more miles I do. So that's how you would adjust the rear. On the front there is an adjustment here. So I've not even read the manual, so I'm not going to touch this. It was set at the factory. It seems to be working okay in the front forks, so there's no bottoming out or stiffness. It all kind of works quite seamlessly with the rear forks. And going on to the front headlights, they just look awesome, and they've got the logo built into the middle of them, so you can have the option on the dashboard. You can have all the lights on, or you can just have the logo illuminated, which looks pretty cool when you're driving around, and certainly looks different from all the other adventure bikes. What else? At the front, I've changed the screen for the bigger high or tall windshields, purely because I'm touring. From a side-on point of view, the bike, it still works with the look of the bike, but crucially when you're on the bike and going any kind of speed, it takes some buffeting away from the helmet. I'm 6'2", and so I sit quite high on the bike because you are sitting in an upright position, and so that taller windshield just pushes the air a bit further up over my helmet and uses the aerodynamics of the helmet to prevent any kind of constant head bobbing while I'm in motion. So it looks pretty good. I didn't even keep the original windscreen. I just told the dealer to chuck it in the bin or recycle it, use it on another bike, whatever. Does need a bit of a clean. Seems to accumulate bugs quite quickly, especially when you're traveling at speed. But I definitely recommend moving to the taller windshield. Okay, continuing on the breakdown of the bike. Next thing to look at is the tank. Tank looks beautiful, no matter which angle you look at it. They've made it look a beauty, and they've obviously done a lot of work in their wind tunnel in Mandela del Lario. It does jut out quite a bit on both sides, and that is right above the cylinder heads, so that must provide some good aerodynamics past your knees and around the side panniers, because most people will probably have the panniers on the bike most of the time, and so whatever they've done in the wind tunnel has obviously paid off, because there's no vibrations when you're at high speed, no wobbles, nothing, so air passes smoothly through and around the bike. At the front here you've got a kind of, it looks like an air intake, and I guess as you can see there's a dead bug in there. It's maybe designed in some way to catch some bigger bugs before they go into the air intakes for the engine. Behind it there isn't actually any kind of space to intake the air, unless it's hidden right back here somewhere in this gap, but I can't see anything there. There's a couple of vents on either side of the tank, so some air will probably go in there, but maybe this one at the front is purely cosmetic, but the air must feed into the engine somewhere, so I maybe need to look at the diagram schematics of the bike to understand how that works. But it does look very cool, the front fender, so it certainly goes with the rest of the look of the bike. But going back to the tank, you've got this sporty looking tank filler cover. I've never had one of these before because my V7 has a kind of chrome twist cap. This one you lift up, insert the key, rotate at the key as it opens, and then on the reverse to close it again. You've got this plastic cover here. It's kind of quite good for dealing with spills of petrol. You're not getting them on a good paint color, and eventually I guess might corrode. The side panels are purely plastic, so that's not actually the tank. If I open up and take the seat away, you can see the tank here. The tank's plastic or some kind of composite material. It's quite a big tank. It's 21 litres, which I don't know what that is in gallons, but Google it and you'll find out. You get about, if you're not driving like a lunatic like me, probably better fuel consumption, but it says on the trip computer usually I just filled it up, so let's see what the computer's saying. That'll be the next thing we cover. So it estimates that we've got 267 miles on that tank of fuel, and I've literally just filled it right up. The interesting thing with the fuel tank, although it's got 21 litres, the empty signal comes on at that second bar up from the bottom, and the corresponding mileage says about 81 miles. So that's, I don't know what, I need to break that down, but that's quite a lot of mileage to remain when the indicator comes on that your tank's almost empty. But I can probably outlast most motorbikes, because most only come with a 16 litre, maybe an 18 litre tank. So for a touring bike, great size of tank. Okay, for the console or the cockpit, you've got quite a clear dash. When you turn it on, the whole thing lights up, shows every single illuminated indicator, warning button, whatever. So you can see there, you've got the engine indicate warning, the ABS tells you whether you're neutral here, and also in the TFT screen as well. When you change into first gear, this one disappears, and obviously this one changes to the numeral 1. MPH goes up as you accelerate. The fastest that I've got this to, and you can scroll through this little menu here on the right, and you just use the up and down mode button to do that. and my average speed is 39 miles per hour. My max speed I've got it up to is 101 miles per hour, which I kind of thought was low. But then I thought, the bike's saddled up with a huge amount of weight, with 2 panniers, a top box, and my heavy ass on it. And it is only an 850cc 2-cylinder, but maybe they've limited it with the ECU as to the power output, because to get to 101 miles per hour, I'm in 6th gear, so top gear, and I'm only really getting to 6,000 revs on the RPM counter. I've never taken it into the red line. If you take it into the red line, these illuminated kind of eyebrows at the top go fucking crazy and constantly flash green, amber and red, and those are to indicate for you to switch up a gear. But obviously if you're in 6th gear, you can't switch up a gear, so I don't know why they keep screaming at you when you're not even in the red zone on the rev counter. So you can change what you want to see. The time is a kind of pointless feature in this menu, but you can have different time zones. The reason I say it's pointless is because it's also in the top right corner. But maybe there's an option here to switch. If I push the button, it might switch to time B. So if you're crossing time zones like I am, that's maybe quite a good feature. And then you can choose which one you're going to look at. If you double press the mode button, then the menu comes up, and then if you hold the menu button down, the mode button, sorry, if you hold that down, then you get into the main menu behind the bike, and it gives you the option to switch on and off the ABS. Not sure what MGCT is, but I'm sure it's in the manual. The shift lights, so that's probably what RPM it's telling you to shift up at, you know, the maximum. So if I go in on that and then go up, so I can change the top RPM before it's telling me to switch up a gear. So you're going to have to ride around and play around with that and see what you want to do. The thing I was told by one of the instructors at Two Ball Bikers in Lower Hutt was that a V-twin like this loves 3rd gear. You know, low gears, it just relishes it. And so on my V7, I changed my whole riding style. I started riding around in 3rd gear all the way up to 8,000 RPMs. So I'm going to start tweaking around the shift lights so that the console's not telling me to shift up all the time at quite a low RPM. But it'd be interesting in the comments, any other users, if they've uncovered this, whether they've changed it, or indeed would they put it at a higher RPM before shifting on this type of bike with a V-twin. Do you like riding around in those 1, 2, 3 gears, or if you're touring, would you be using maybe the 4, 5s and 6 more because you're doing long distances? And that's certainly what I'm doing at the moment. Is I'm doing 300-400 miles on very straight roads, great scenery, but often quite boring, so I'm sitting on cruise control at 80 miles an hour. But if I was back in New Zealand, lots more twists and turns, and I probably would be in 1st, 2nd and 3rd a lot of the time. Okay, so that's the menu. You'll see down here it's got the word road and a little road emblem. You can change that to a different riding mode by hitting the electronic start button twice. So if I hit that twice, I think the bike needs to be on for that to work. So we'll start the bike on, and then if we hit this button twice, you'll see it change to rain mode, and then hit it twice again and it goes to off-road mode, and it tells you that the rear ABS has been disabled. And if I go again, I'm back to the road mode. So mostly I'm riding around the road mode. I only have turned it onto the rain mode once when I was going to Astoria, and it was just pissing it down, and I wanted that softer reaction on the brakes, which I think this mode gives you in the rain mode, and obviously the ABS is tweaked as well probably. What else is there on the menu? So max speed, time and trip. So I've got trip, I kind of set that every day. I've not gone anywhere today, so it's still yesterday's trip, which was 200 odd miles. Fuel, average consumption, etc, etc, etc. So those are the things that are constantly there, and you can just scroll between them when you're riding. The menu, you're probably best changing those kind of things when you're stationary, because you do have to look down and concentrate at this little screen. But the brightness is very good. At night there must be some sensor somewhere on this outside panel that tells it that there's low light, because the contrast changes from where you can see white, it changes to black, so that it's just the rev counter in grey, and then the text that's black turns white. So that instant contrast in darker environments and tunnels makes you see the screen better. Over on the left you've got the USB ports. I think with the hot weather, the glue that's keeping this in isn't working, because the whole thing moves in and out. You can see that, and it probably shouldn't do that, so I'll need to sort that out, but it's not causing any problems, and it's not unwired it at the back or anything. So your USB goes in there. Often, because I'm moto camping, I'm running my phone right down, or watching films at night in the tent, and my helmet runs down and my emergency battery pack runs down. So I just plug the cable in here and run it to my right hand pocket, and just keep the device in my pocket charging while I'm getting from A to B. So that's quite a good way to do it. If you had a mount somewhere here on the handlebars for a device, then you could just kind of connect it in and have it constantly running. But I just listen through my Sena headset, directions of where I need to go. This console does have the ability to have a GPS, but it's not been released yet as far as I'm aware. But contact your Guzzi dealer and ask them more about that. I don't have it, so I can't give you any information about it. Other controls of the bike, so you've got the light modes. So you've got fog lights at the rear, at the front I think, or is it rear? I can never remember. These are your daylight running lights, and then this one just brings on the eagle emblem at the front, nothing else. I'm not quite sure. I should read the manual. I'll probably do that tonight now that I've made the video, but I'm not sure what that little icon means. If that's just some kind of fog lights. I should know, because I've read the highway code, so it might just be some kind of illuminated light, but I'll read the manual and find out what that is. But those three settings there, and you've got your emergency hazard lights. This is your mode button to run the cockpit screen. And then you've got your emergency cut-off button, so that's what I used to stop the bike a minute ago. And then you've got your starter motor, and also this is your button to change the modes, the riding modes on the bike. Throttles here. This is a ride-by-wire, so there is no cable in here. This is all I guess copper wires and some kind of control down to the engine to make the speed increase. You've got your front brake lever. It's got these little adjustments, so I guess you can adjust the distance between the bar and where your fingers are going to sit on the thing. I have not adjusted these came set at 2, so I've just left them like that. It seems to be okay, but I may change them in the future. On this side you've got, these are your headlights, although the main daylight running lights seem to be brighter than ever turning on the main beam, which is what you do by flicking that up. So that's main beam. When it's sitting there in middle, that's just dimmed lights, and then to flash somebody, you just hold it down like that. Below that you've got the cruise control. Again, I've not read the manual, I just started playing with it. But basically when you're at speed, you hold this down for 3 seconds or so, and then it engages the cruise control feature, and then you press it again to set it at the speed that you're going at, and it will just cruise along until you hit the brakes, or you hold down the cruise button again for 3 seconds. Indicators left and right, and then there's a horn button at the bottom underneath, and there's another button here which I only found today. I didn't even know it was there. I have no idea what it does, so I'm going to read the manual and I'll post something in the description once I know what this does. So that's all the controls to the bike. It's really quite a straightforward touring bike. It's not overly complicated. I've had no problems with the controls. They're really easy to pick up. The lights are really bright, they work great at night. The screen is really clear and easy to use. So overall, it's a super little touring bike. You can go bigger and better and spend a lot more money with a BMW, or even some of those big super tours like a Goldwing with all the bells and whistles, your Harley Davidsons, electro glides and things like that. But I like this. This goes at the speed that I need it to go at, and I've had no problems with it ever since I bought it, which is going on 14 days now, riding solidly throughout the United States in some very hot weather. Nothing's peeled, broken. Had a problem with the wing mirrors, so they tend to move. This one's kind of moving at the moment for some reason, but they kind of move back and forward quite easily. You just lift up these plastic covers, or rubber covers, sorry, and you get 2 bolts there, or nuts that you tighten, and you can fix it into position. But they do tilt at the end. Obviously it's not doing it now when I want to show you, but you see you can tilt on that ball joint there, so you can tweak it to get your perfect alignment. I'm guessing you could also change the angle of the controls as well, because it all seems to be clamped on here. Not sure about this control panel here. If you're a shorter person, you might want your hands in a different position, but you've got the wind guards around the handlebars. They're quite good for deflecting a bit of rain, but if it's raining solidly, your hands are going to get kind of drenched anyway, just from the constant rain hitting your body. Seat, as I said in the previous video, very comfortable. I've not carried a pillion passenger because I've had my red luggage bag there, and then all the other boxes attached around it. Okay, we've changed location. We're now back at the motel because I finished my laundry, and we just finished talking about the seat and how comfortable it was. Just going to go on to some of the extras that I've added on that don't come with the bike. So I've added on the tall windshield, which any dealer can do, or they can supply it to you. You could probably fit it to yourself, because you just swap out these hex bolts on your one that's fitted by the factory and replace it with this taller one. The other thing that I've replaced, or added, sorry, I've not replaced, is the engine guards. So I had the dealership attach these on both sides. Probably they're not required. If you've got the boxes on the back, if the bike falls over, it's really going to hit the side panniers and the end of the handlebars. Even if these are tilted right round, they still stick out proud of the cylinder heads. So cylinder guards might have been a bit of a luxury, but they do look good. It's a shame they're not in the red frame color, but the black kind of makes it hide into the engine, and so they're a bit more discreet. Have dropped the bike twice, and even the engine guards weren't even scratched, because the box and the side handlebar actually prevented the tank or even the cylinder heads from touching anything. So if you're worried about dropping it, you're not going to do much damage to it. In fact, I've noticed a little bit of damage here just talking about this, but I wonder if that's a scratch. No, it's just some bugs. So I'll just buff that out at some point. Alright, so that's the accessories. With the pegs, there are these rubber kind of attachments that go under or on top of some sawtooth metal pegs, so the rubber bit can come out and then you can just stand straight onto the metal if you're going to be kind of in adventure mode out in the outback somewhere in mud, and you don't want to slide off the rubber with any kind of mud on your boots. This side you've got the gear changer, the other side you've got the rear brake, and it's all mounted to this kind of customized aluminium mount, which then attaches onto the rear pegs for the pillion passenger, and it also mounts the saddlebags mounting tubes. So that's the pegs, and then the kickstand, when it's up, it's actually quite close to the pegs, so to begin with it's a bit of an annoyance to try and find it with your heel, but after your muscle memory kicks in, after using it about 3 or 4 times, you just kick it down when you come to a stop. Seems to hold the bike in a good stance. I'm always a bit worried when I pull up somewhere whether there's going to be an angled curb, and therefore when the bike's stationary, is it going to be too upright and then fall over to the right. So I'm always a bit worried about that. Some camping spots are always on an incline, so it's about finding the right position for the bike, but we're in a completely level car park here, and it leans over to the left and sits there quite happily, even at the weight that it's at. So that's the bike. If you've got any specific questions you want to know, or you want me to do a video on something on the bike that I've not really covered, I guess I've not covered the brakes. They're Brembo disc brakes at the front on both sides, and then there's another disc brake on the rear. They got some good stopping power. Americans tend not to indicate until the very last minute, and so I've had to slam on the brakes, especially in Vegas, at a moment's notice, and they respond real quick. Even with the total amount of weight on the bike, those Brembo brakes are really powerful. For the weight of the bike, my weight, which is about 90 kgs, and then the boxes, which unladen, the boxes are really quite heavy metal boxes on their own, and I've got them filled to the gunnels with all my motor camping stuff, clothes, spare water, cooking equipment and things like that, and I've got a laptop with me as well. So even with all that weight, the brakes stop the bike quite comfortably, and you don't feel that you're not in control at any point, so that's quite good. This bike, if you're unfamiliar with Guzzi's, is got a drive shaft. All Guzzi's have drive shafts. For me, that's one of the appeals of this brand, is that the drive shaft reduces the maintenance from my point of view. I don't need to worry about lubing chains, changing chains after a certain length of time, tightening the tension of chains and all that. So all that's removed. You never need to do anything with the shaft drive, although, as I said in a previous video, one poor chap on Reddit has had a problem with the fluids leaking from his shaft drive, so he's having that fixed under warranty, I would imagine. But doesn't really affect the power to the rear wheel that I've noticed, because I'm not traveling at super high speeds, you know. Although in saying that, since I was at the laundromat and then doing the video here, I've looked up the conversion of 100 miles an hour into kilometers an hour, and that turns out to be about 160 kilometers an hour. So that's actually quite fast. I think that's about as fast as I've ever managed to get on my V7 special. So this is more than capable of getting up there. I can't really keep up with a 1200 GS, they seem to be able to tear off beyond 100 and maintain it. I've struggled to keep this above 100 only because I don't want to redline it too much while I'm breaking it in. Another thing I've looked up while I got back to the room and had some Wi-Fi is I found out what these 3 settings are with the lights. Okay, so the first one, so if we flick it up there, is actually the daytime running lights. So that's what that setting is. The middle setting, sorry, this one here, that is the low beam, high beam night lights. So you would flick it onto that at around dusk, and that puts on your 2 front spots plus the middle eagle, and then on the back it just brightens the rear light, I reckon. And then going all the way to the end is the fog lights. So I flicked it on that when I was riding at night, and it didn't seem to do anything at the front, so it must just activate a brighter rear red light for the rear fog light. So we'll stick it back on the daytime running lights. And this button over here, I've just looked in the manual, and apparently this white button is for heated grips. Now, I didn't think this bike came with heated grips, but I'm going to fire her up, and then if we push this button, we should get something appear on the dash to say that the things are heating up. So I'm pushing it a couple of times, and it's not doing anything. There's nothing. There should be a little symbol there just above the 0 to say that there's heated grips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bike off. The console is going to power down, and then I'm going to power it up, and it will light up every single light on the dash, and then we can see if that light is built in for the heated grips. So I can't see anything there. No, it's coming straight up. I don't know how you bring up all the buttons. Sometimes when it goes to a night mode, you can kind of see the 2 helmets there, very basically. So they would come on if you used this console to connect your Bluetooth, but you can just see they're faded out in the white there. It's easier to see in daylight. I can't really see the heated grips one, but maybe speak to your dealer. Maybe they've had it pre-wired that you just then take off the rubber grips and they swap out to something that's heated. So it's an optional accessory in the book, so they probably just had it pre-wired with the button ready to go for the ECU to power these if you want them. So that's a shame. I got all excited there that I had heated grips and I didn't know about it, but obviously I don't. So that's the bike. As I said before I started talking about the brakes, if you've got any questions you want me to answer, write it in the comments of this video and I will come back to you. If you want me to make another video about anything specifically, again, put it in the comments and I will get to it down the line. I'll update you again when I get past Sturgis, so I'll probably hit about 5,000 miles by then, and then I'll probably do a video about buying a bike overseas. So I'm from New Zealand and I've bought this one in America, and I'm going to be importing it back to New Zealand, so I might do a video about that process, so that people that want to buy a bike from overseas, if they're traveling, if they want to do a tour of another country but don't want to have to ship their bike there and then back again, or they want to buy a specific model that they can't get in their own country and take it back, then I'll try and cover some points. But bike looks beautiful. I can see why there's such a popularity to it. It's just an all-round great vehicle. Handles really well, it's comfortable to ride. For my height, it's a great riding position, and I look forward to many years of using it. So stay safe on the roads, and I'll catch you soon. Bye.